it's Bee here, and I'm so psyched to be back, coming at you solo in October. Last month in my September solo episode, we talked all about Numerology 101, the who, what, where, when, why, and how of a numerological practice, and we talked about a few of your personal numbers in your numerological chart. If you haven't listened to that episode, that's totally okay. There's plenty of time to catch up. But I think you can still listen to this one and be pretty well informed, because we are going to dig further into some of the single digit building block numbers today. But we're going to do that by talking about one of my very favorite topics, which, if you've read my book, The Witch's Book of Numbers, it might not come as a big surprise. But today we're going to talk about how to add numerology to your witchcraft, how to cast spells that are numerologically inspired and aligned. And of course, October gives us the perfect opportunity to put this kind of work into practice right away, because we have Samhain, or the Witch's New Year, at the end of the month. And that also means that we have all month to prepare, which is great. All right, so Samhain, let's get into it. If you've seen this word written, you know that it looks nothing like how it's said. It is spelled Samhain, but it is pronounced Samhain. I will put all of that in the show notes so that you can see it. Samhain is a Gaelic word that translates as summer's end. It originated in Celtic spirituality, and Samhain is one of the 4 harvest festivals that were observed, and it would last for 3 days and 3 nights from October 31st to November 2nd. And if you are familiar with the Wheel of the Year, or if you use it in your practice, it falls opposite Beltane, which takes place on May 1st and celebrates life and the coming of the light. So this is the opposite. Now we are getting ready for the darkness and the winter ahead, ushering us, we're going through kind of the portal of Samhain to get to that next season. Samhain lore maintains that this time of year is when the veil between worlds is the thinnest, allowing us to both honor and dwell with those who have already left this earthly plane, or communicate with whatever spirits we work with in our own practices that are on the other side. Most Samhain rituals also traditionally include some sort of release or surrender to the coming months, an acceptance of the cycle of winter, death, and darkness. And this sounds really bleak, but really this time of year is so beautiful. We're in the heart of Scorpio season, and we're really composting and allowing ourselves to be reborn from the ashes like the phoenix. Witches can also set intentions for the following year, as Samhain marks the beginning of a new spin of the wheel of the year. So that's why some witches refer to it as the new year. But no matter what, whether you observe Samhain or another seasonal holy day during this time, please just permission yourself to indulge in creative magic on this day. Feel it in your body, bring it into your practice. This can be super mundane or really magical, but do something, especially in this 8 year of 2024, 8 rules: action, devotion, and implementation. So this is the perfect time to get started right now. When we talk about the numerology of Samhain, what we're really talking about is the daily numerology. And we can find the first number, like our monthly numbers, we have 2, right? We have the number at the core of the day, and then we can add the current year to get some additional specific information. So when we look at Samhain, we're adding the month to the day. So we're going to look at 2 dates together today. And that's because it is said that the Witch's New Year starts at midnight on Halloween. So of course the party starts on 10/31, October 31st. But then Samhain, opposite Beltane, is really on November 1st. If we're looking at October 31st, just the dates, we add 10 to 31 and reduce it, and we end up getting to 5. Now, this is perfect for Samhain, honestly, because 5 is very much the messy middle. It's right, over the hump. It's the transitional space between the beginning of the spiral and the end of the spiral. And Samhain itself is also very much a liminal festival, meaning that when we look at Samhain, we are welcoming in new, but we are also protecting ourselves against all of the spirits that are out and about on a night like Samhain. So having 5 be the number for Halloween really is like mischief, like mischievous energy. And so I think that's perfect. But then if we're looking at November 1st, we have these 3 ones to make 3, 111. And 3 is the number of magic and story. And again, setting these intentions and kind of embarking on this new chapter. So there's a lot to work with. First of all, both of these numbers have really cool patterns if you're looking at them visually. So if we omit 0 from 10 being October's number, and we just use 1, then the sequence of Halloween is a palindrome. It reads the same backwards and forwards, right? 1, 3, 1. And then, of course, November 1st has these 3 repeating ones. My phrase for 111 is "you are united with the all," which feels really right and perfect for Samhain. It's this invitation into engagement and creation and unity. If you're interested in my take on repeating or angel numbers, there is a recording of a free lecture that I hosted in June on my Substack and on my personal YouTube at Bee Scolnick, so you can check that out. But the combination of 3 and 5 for Samhain is really giving trickster goddess, right? It's giving Hierophant and Empress. It's chaos magic. It's this new beauty that is created through change. So it's connecting with some of these witchy trickster deities like Hecate or Loki or Hermes. And it's being brave enough to step right up to the crossroads and maybe even take a different path forwards. And then I also love that the core number of Halloween is 5, which is the helper number that we talked about in the October forecast. So I know I like November 1st, but that really feels like an anchor number for us this month is that 5. Now, specifically in 2024, Samhain gets a new batch of numbers. So we have 5 and 3 if we're just looking at the days themselves. But when we add 2024 to October 31st and November 1st, respectively, we get 4 and 11, which reduces to 2. So first of all, 4 for October 31st, that's its 2024 year specific number. And 4 rules rituals and traditions, beliefs, structures, family, ancestral roots, death, composting, turning over, all that juicy goodness. So that's what we have to deal with 4. And then November 1st in 2024 gives us 11 energy, which we can also reduce to 2. And this is actually the same numerology as the autumnal equinox, which is another day that you might have observed in September. So I like that alignment of having 11 to be prominent numbers this year in 2024, because this rules romance, rose-colored glasses, hope, optimism, seeing things in their ideal forms, connecting the dots between where we are, where we want to go. And that feels very much a part of the collective numerology and a lot of the themes that we've been talking about in the larger all Coven forecasts. So just a note on 11, if you do want to work with that repeating number, which again is idealism and higher perspective, that's actually a great energy to bring with you into your intention setting, because it can give you this kind of bird's eye view on the big picture of the next year. But the tricky thing with 11 and why you might want to work with 2, and when we get into the numbers, I am only going to give you information for 2, is because 11 can also take you a little too far into the realm of fantasy and not really prep you for the boots on the ground work or like what is actually necessary to get from point A to point B. But again, follow your gut, trust your impulses, and just make sure, especially with a trickster festival like Samhain, that you're doing kind of grounded protection work as well as having, 11, 1 foot here, 1 foot there. So work with it. But really, there are so many numbers that you can use when planning spells. So like I said today, we're going to look at 4 numbers. They are 5, 3, 4, and 2. which put in a different order are 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is also really rad. So you're going to get this really solid look at the key concepts for the beginning of the spiral. We're not going to go into all the numbers today. So if you are looking for more information on the building block numbers, I do have a free cheat sheet on my website, RebeccaScolnick.com. And if you're interested in all the numbers and what they can offer you for your witchcraft, I do have another offering that I will tell you about at the end of the episode. But there are so many numbers that you can use when planning spells that go beyond just the daily numbers. So like you could incorporate the monthly numbers. October would be 1 and 9 collectively. You can keep in mind the yearly number, like 8 for 2024. You can look into your own personal yearly and monthly numbers. You can bring in your life path numbers or other chart placements that you want to connect to. Really, the sky is the limit. And when we're looking at spells, we can consider tons of tools, tons of ideas, such as body correlation, the shape that is aligned with the number. Again, it's core concepts or themes, the date, the time of day, the structure or the length of the ritual. How many steps do you want to have? How long do you want it to be? Do you want it to be one day? Do you want it to be all 3 days? We can take into account aligned deities, figures, archetypes, or characters that you could work with. You can think about what are the spiritual tools like crystals, cards, candles, herbs. You can look at mantras or text of the spell. How many words do you want to say? How many sentences? Anything and everything. It all can be boiled down to numbers somehow. So, for example, let's bust right into the first number that is with us this Samhain season, which is 2. So again, 2 is going to be if you are working with November 1st, specific to 2024. And 2 is the archetype of the peacemaker. So its key concepts are the next and the other. It's the number of love and relationships, of diplomacy and kindness and compassion. It is a very sensitive and feeling number. And spell themes for the number 2 include loving kindness and compassion spells, whether that's with yourself, in relationship with others, if you are sweetening the deal, in terms of collaborations, or just desiring to bring more compassion into your life or into your relationships. These spells could also be peace and cooperation, which is needed on a collective level now more than ever. So I think we could all stand to do some peace and cooperation rituals, especially heading into November. And then it also symbolizes the crossroads. That's the sacred shape of 2, the cross or the crossroads. So if you are meeting yourself in the spiral with a decision to make, 2 is a great numeric ally to say this way, that way, either or, that kind of thing. And moving on to the number 3, which is the core date of November 1st. 3 is the communicator. So the communicator, this archetype is all about creativity and expression. It's the concept of the magic rule, which if you haven't heard that, it's the idea that things are inherently more satisfying in groups of 3. It also is representative of the hero's journey, which we talked about in the all Coven forecast, having 12 steps, which reduces to 3. And then the communicator also is skilled in making the specific feel universal. So sharing something that is specific to them, and then suddenly it becomes really resonant and relatable for others. So our spell themes for a 3-ruled Samhain are communication and expression, right? Maybe that's unblocking our throat. Maybe that's speaking our truth. Maybe that is, again, asking for performing spells that will ease communications or help you to deliver messages, those kinds of things. It also could mean creativity. So how are you connecting with your inner creative source? And then you could also think about spells to enhance your magical abilities. So if you are trying to exercise new magical muscles of any of the clairs, right? Maybe you've always wanted to be clairvoyant and you would like to learn how. These spells are really potent. Spells inspired by the number 3 are great for, again, learning new magical tips, tricks, tools, skills, seeing what you can do there. And also, again, aiding in this communication with those beyond the veil. And just a little note on 3, speaking out loud is a really important part of 3 inspired spells. So whatever you're crafting, make sure there is an out loud component where you're using your voice as the tool. So 4 is our number of October 31st in 2024. 4 is the salt of the earth. So 4 rules traditions and beliefs, systems, structures, natural born builders, and also this critical lens to things, which can be really nice when we are looking at spells and we kind of have to weed and sift and sort. Just be aware of that when you're bringing 4 into a magical practice, that sometimes the inner critic likes to get really loud, and that's not always conducive to making the most potent free magic. So first and foremost, we can do spells around spatial cleansing and protection. We said protection was important, especially for a trickster night like Samhain, but spatial cleansing can be really nice to meet the new year with a decluttered, lovely, sweet-smelling space. 4 is also great for ancestral connection and childhood healing, as it is our roots, our childhood, sometimes our mothers. Now, ancestor work is very prominent during this time of Samhain, which if you are queer and that's a touchy subject for you, don't worry. Hey, me too. I'm linking in the show notes a free podcast episode that I did on Substack a few years ago that speaks to this specifically, queerness and ancestral work, and lists out options for making kind of queer friendly or compassionate magic during Samhain. So check that out if you're interested in more information on Samhain from a queer lens. And then finally, for 4, we can talk about organizational magic. Having Samhain land on a 4-day really bodes well for us building systems and structures that are going to be supportive to us for the new year. So don't be afraid to make grounded magic at Samhain this year. And then, of course, we have our Halloween number 5, the change maker, the trickster, ruling fun and freedom, change and contraction, learning through experience, weathering the storm, right? 5 is the messy middle. And I think there's a lot, especially this year, that we can do with the number 5. Some spell themes to consider are welcoming and making the most of change. You know, how can we make magic through transitional times? Also around perseverance, stamina, and support through really challenging times. If we are really in the turning gyre of the year, how can we build our strength and kind of hold ourselves here, anchor ourselves through this time? And another idea is just to work with the breath and the body. So it doesn't have to be a full ritual, but 5 is the stomach, 5 is a physical number of emotions in the body. So anything that is moving emotions or moving breath or energy or life force through the body is going to be really potent if you're making magic with the number 5. So those are just a few ideas of spells that align with the numbers that we're working with this Samhain in 2024. And hopefully this gives you a starting place to consider what you might want to do. If you are interested in learning more about incorporating each of the building blocks into your practice, including body correlations, sacred shapes, crystals, herbs, and more, I have a brand new lecture available on my website. It's for purchase now, called Numerology for Witches. And along with the talk is a long slideshow of all the information in a visual format, as well as a small packet of bespoke spells, one for every building block number, and a witchy reading list. So a book to read for each number. That's great in October and kind of great for bringing you into the future with numerological spell casting. And if you're interested in going even further with me on a one-on-one level, I do have readings available in October. I'm also opening back up my seeker sessions, which are tailored to the recipient. And this can be anything from tarot and numerology to what does the upcoming year have for me, to spiritual or spell crafting consultations. So if you really want to do something for Samhain, but you need help, please come see me. We will create spells together or rituals. We'll talk about what's important to you, what's going on in your life right now, and figure out how you can best magically work with that energy and support yourself and get what you want, honestly. So my calendar is on the website, RebeccaScolnick.com. And you can also purchase my book, which just turned 2 on September 27th, The Witch's Book of Numbers, wherever books are sold, also linked in the show notes. And that's what I have for you this month. So I am sending you tons of love and support and magic for whatever Samhain ritual you choose to do this month. I know that I will be crafting my own in the coming weeks, and I'm so excited for you to listen to what the rest of the Coven has for you this month. And I will see you later in the month for the election forecast, and then definitely back in November. And of course, don't forget to do all of the things like subscribe, rate, review, please, please. It really helps the show find new members of the Coven and also lets us know that we're doing something worthwhile here, that you're enjoying and that's supportive. And thank you to everyone who's already left a review. If you want to connect with us, we are on Instagram at Call Your Coven. Our website is callyourcoven.com. You can email us, callyourcoven@gmail.com. You can support the show either as a free member to get updates or as a paid supporter on Patreon. You can watch us on YouTube, download us wherever podcasts are. You know. All right. Have a beautiful October. Happy Samhain. I will see you next year.